Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do the usual disclaimers, my apologies. You want to know why I look like I just licked my finger and stuck it in a light socket? This is what happens when I do not braid this horrible breeze here. And I live in Missouri. Also, another reason why I look like crap, just got off of an 8-hour shift, which was not quite as torturous towards the end, but oh my god, in the beginning. Every day I lose a little bit more faith in humanity. Every day, folks. Alright, just know the stupid is real, it burns, and where is my safe space from stupid people? As Foamy would put it. Alright, to the disclaimers, alright. In the description box, you're going to find the link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much, they have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there, NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozarks' first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation. So-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and deaths, just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor, still on the premises with full access to the boys up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens to do his job, and also failing miserably to defund public libraries, I might add, and a governor off his nuts. So please send help to the few sane people who are left here, because we're getting a little less sane by the day. I don't want to look like Albert Einstein here by the time I somehow manage to scrunch my way the hell out of this state. So send help. Read that article, share it on all your social media. We have always the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shots campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masumba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory Change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, folks, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, please use your headphones. Trigger warning. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, all right? Okay, folks, so where we left off last time. Quality of interactions and verbal exchanges. I found the verbal interactions between X and her aide inappropriate on a number of dimensions. Go on. First, while there were frequent verbal exchanges, they mostly concerned not doing behaviors, not touching others' materials, not spitting, not stopping work, no hand play. No. All about behaviors. What have I told you? This is the old school, folks. It's hard for us who've been a part of the new school and the new science in this particular area to wrap our brains around. But for those of us who have been forced to work with those dinosaurs, by the way, they are arrogant assholes. Trigger warning, we curse. I mean, arrogant, self-important, pompous. I could go on. The old school, and this is hard for the new school again to wrap our brains around, they don't think we can learn. As soon as we are able to understand this concept, some of what the JRC and places like it do, granted, places not nearly as psycho as they are, but it begins to make a little bit more sense. These individuals, allergies, they focus on the behaviors because they don't see the point in trying to educate us. Okay? I'm going to just say the quiet part out loud. Let's move on here. This observer conducted 3 one-minute samples comparing negative and positive verbal feedback to X. In the first 1-minute observation, there were 3 positive statements to X and 13 negative statements. In a second 1-minute observation, 3 positives and 4 negative statements were recorded. In third observation, 1 positive and 9 negative. Okay, can I just... Why are we counting this? This is ridiculous. Okay, I'm sorry to insult you, Dr. Fredda. I am truly, but I'm going to say that this is asinine. This is absolutely asinine. I'm going to call it what it is. Why are we counting positive and negative statements? Why is this a thing? This is not natural. This is not how social interactions work. You think neurotypicals are out there having a conversation, counting positives and negatives in regards to statements? They're not. Literally, nobody does that. The goal is supposed to integrate us among the normies in a natural and as easy and fluid a way as humanly possible. How in the name of God are we supposed to do that if we're counting positive and negative statements? This is not how real life works. This is one of the areas where even the modern side of things is still extremely stunted. Natural social interactions happen naturally. Nobody should be counting anything. It makes no sense. And the fact that you literally are writing down on a piece of paper, come with me on this journey here. You're littering down, well, they only did this many positive things. This is not how any of this works. I'm coming down on both sides here. This is insane. Okay? Who comes up with this? Because this isn't normal. You're trying to get us to act normal, but you're doing it in a way that is completely, utterly abnormal. Social interactions is not counting positive and negative comments. Positive social interaction is conversations. Naturally flowing conversations do not have the participants sitting there counting positive and negative statements. But let's read on, shall we? I'm sorry, but that is the most ridiculous thing I've seen that's come. Well, one of the most ridiculous things. There's a lot of stupid crap that you just sit there, shake your head, and wonder why. But let's move on. Sorry about the allergies. Second, in the phrasing of the statements to X were on an inappropriate cognitive and developmental level. The length of the utterances were typically too long, many were 5 or 6 words long, and the complexity of the grammar and the vocabulary was too sophisticated. No functional movement of objects. I am hoping I don't have a whole lot of that left. And let's face it, I got none. I hope you are referring to the fact that they make people say in full sentences something that can be answered with 2 words, as opposed to trying to sit there and say that we are not capable of more, because that's the kind of things that make me twitch. Really does. How about I, the individual autistic, decide my limits, not you? How about the individual nonverbal or a person who has difficulty talking decides their limits, not you? What a thought, right? It's revolutionary. Third, the tone of positive and negative feedback to X was essentially the same. That is, while the words spoken were different, there was a monotone effect that made the messages the same. No touching others without permission sounded essentially the same as good sitting appropriately at your computer. As described above, it is not likely that X could understand the complexity of the statements. And then his thanks. Thanks for telling us that we're stupid. We're not. We understand a hell of a lot more than what we're ever given credit for. Yes, that includes the nonverbals. See, even in the new school, we still have those preconceived ideas that stunts any real progress. Because there's some preconceived ideas that even the so-called well-meaning folks have, and they too have their own arrogance where they don't want to talk to the neurodiverse community, who can tell them we understand a lot more than what we're given credit for. If you think we don't understand what's being said in front of our face and especially behind our backs, I got beachfront property, oceanfront property in Kansas I can sell you. And is further obscured by monotone presentation of statements. X would likely be able to discriminate a positive from a negative statement. That's bull, Karen. Sorry, Dr. Fredda. I've been with you for the majority of this article. That is garbage. I'm a reader, Dr. Fredda. I can tell you with my full chest that whether said in monotone or not, I know when a comment made towards me is positive or negative, regardless of the tone that is used when it is said to me. Okay? Do we have difficulties with some tones of voice? To an extent. To an extent. But that's ridiculous. This is the stuff that keeps the new school from moving forward. But let's move further. Fourth, X was never verbally given any alternatives to those behaviors deemed inappropriate by her aide. That's what I kept telling you guys. They're not even showing any other more healthy behaviors. They're just punished. And what does that do? other than compound trauma. For example, X was not verbally instructed, shown, or prompted how to interact with staff or appropriately get their attention instead of no touching others without permission. She was not taught to appropriately interact with the student sitting next to her, but was informed no non-functional movement of objects and no stopping work. In other words, no social skills training. Oh, Dr. Matthews, but we do. That's not social skills training. That is learning by rote, and there's a massive difference between the two of them. You can memorize and recite anything, but that does not equal social interaction. So they're not teaching social skills. They're not teaching life skills. All they're doing is punishing behaviors. And then when they stop because they're in fear for their life from the pain, they call it progress. So we're learning a lot this evening. We're learning first off that the way things are done now, as opposed to the few dinosaurs clinging with a death grip onto the past, is not quite as progressive and advanced as people would like you to think it is. There are still some old concepts still hanging on. One of the main reasons why is the medical model. And a lot of treatment programs still, to this day, will not listen to the neurodiverse community, especially the autistic side of the neurodiverse community. When we try to explain to them on numerous occasions that we understand a lot more about what's going on around us, what's being said about us one way or another, they don't listen because they have this dumb idea that somehow because someone may be nonverbal and may make vocal stems, that somehow what that means is we don't actually understand what's being said and cannot tell whether it's an insult or a compliment. Now, there are some occasions with some individuals. I'm not going to be high-handed and say that this is true in every case, but this is why treatment programs need to be individualized in the first place. Because a lot of us, yes, including nonverbals, do understand what's going on around us. We are able to understand more complex sentences. We are able to understand the difference between a compliment and a negative comment. And we also, something we are never given credit for, know instinctually when someone is not giving a real compliment or not. Also pretty good at spotting liars. We know when something's performance and when it's actually meant. You can compliment someone all day long, but if none of those compliments are actually meant, and yes, we know when they're meant, then they do nothing and have no purpose. Another thing is if you are sitting there and you have part of your program to sit there and the interaction between student and teacher is to count and have the teacher literally write down all the compliments as well as the negative comments, you're doing it wrong. I don't think there is a way I can emphasize just how wrong and illogical and stupid that is. But you can't expect me to suddenly develop organic, flowing, natural social skills when you're sitting there counting. Okay? Doesn't make any sense, does it? There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of advocacy that is still needing to be done. I will probably never rest my entire life because those of us in particular who've worked this field, who've gone out and spoken on these subjects, myself, Lyric, there's a few others who's been doing it as well, whose names escape me because I'm brain dead this evening, to listen to what we're saying to them, to start taking their preconceived ideas of what it is that they think people like us are capable of and what we're not, and do the thing they should have done over 2 decades ago and throw it out the window. Remember that old saying from the Bible where it says, "A wise man realizes he knows nothing"? I believe that would be a good starting point. And we're going to go ahead and close out on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I will see you in the next vid in the next few minutes. Bye-bye, everyone.